Hello, John. Elizabeth waved her hand at the man with a smile on her face as she walked out of the house. How are you doing? The neighbor waved back. The day before, a water pipe had burst in Elizabeth's house. She didn't hesitate to run to John for help. Who else would she go to? John will always help. A master, which is no few, and also not indifferent, were a kind man. I'm fine, John answered to her. And how is your pipe? Thanks to you, it's not leaking. Thank you. Elizabeth lived in a small village. She had a small house with a vegetable garden where she lived with her 4 children. 3 years after the birth of her 4 children, her husband died. Left alone with children in her arms, Elizabeth at first dropped her hands, even began to use alcohol. She could sit for hours in the yard of the small house with a bottle of wine and cry. Elizabeth loved her husband. Apart from him, the woman had no one else. When he proposed to her, she immediately accepted. Michael was older than Elizabeth. A strong, intelligent, independent man inspired her confidence in the future. Elizabeth was happy. Michael brought her to his house in the village, said that now she is the mistress. The woman gladly began to arrange the comfort of the house, planted a vegetable garden, carefully grew potatoes, carrots, cabbage, and then a daughter was born. Michael and Elizabeth named her Olivia. After the daughter, Elizabeth gave birth to 3 sons. Michael was happy. He had a beautiful wife and 4 children. The boys grow strong, smart. The man dreamed of how they will go fishing together on a lake, how he will teach them to fish. And at home, Elizabeth and Olivia prepared their catch for dinner, feed the whole family. But the man's dreams were not destined to come true. God took Michael when his eldest daughter was only 10 years old. A heart attack. Remembering her beloved husband, Michael sat in the yard and drank wine. The woman's consciousness clouded. Gradually, she sank to the bottom of human life. The house wasn't in chaos. Elizabeth stopped cooking, stopped cleaning, stopped watching the children. 10 years old Olivia fed her younger brothers what she could find in the refrigerator or in the vegetable garden, and also went to the neighbors and asked for food. One day, John met her on the street. "Uncle, do you have some food? My mom is drunk and I have 300 brothers at home," she asked John, who was in his way to the store. The man stopped and looked at the girl carefully, touching with sad, begging eyes in which the pain was frozen. She stood in front of him with her hand outstretched. "Come with me, baby," the man said to her, taking her hand. "Mommy won't let me go far from home." The girl shook her head. "We will be back in no time. She won't notice." John bought a variety of food and sweets for the children. Olivia looked at the basket full of goodies. It had been a long time since they had so much food. As John and Olivia entered the yard, Elizabeth shouted at the girl, "Where are you walking, you brat? Your brother's at home alone, and you want to go out?" Elizabeth's teacher toward her daughter and wanted to hit her, but John interrupted her arm. The woman stared at him drunkenly. "Take the bags and go inside," John said to Olivia. "I need to talk to your mom." When the girl was out the door, John sat Elizabeth down on the bench and sat next to her. "What? Are you going to tell me I'm an alcoholic and a bad mother?" Elizabeth grinned weakly. "You will be soon, if you don't stop drinking. Can get Michael back, but you still have children who could be taken away, but put in foster care." "What then, Elizabeth?" John looked at the woman sternly, but she didn't care. She hadn't paid attention to the neighbors who judged her for months now. What could they possibly know about her? They wouldn't understand how, in the prime of life, to be left alone with 4 children, no job, no means of livelihood. Look at you, Elizabeth. You're a young, beautiful, strong woman, but you've turned into nothing. John looked in her eyes, clouded by alcohol. Why are you so destroying yourself? I have nothing to live for. Michael is gone, Elizabeth cried. John pulled the woman against him, put his arms around his shoulders. He was silent and thought about how to help his neighbor. Yes, today he brought them groceries, but John could not do it every day. Suddenly, a great idea came into the man's head. You need a job, Elizabeth, he told her. I've never worked. Michael always made his own money, and I took care of the house and children, Elizabeth replied. There is a first time for everything. You will be fine, but please pull yourself together and stop drinking. John stroked her arm. I bought your children groceries. Now you will get up, wipe your tears, and go make dinner for your children. Do you understand me? The woman only nodded her head. When John left the yard, she went to check on her sons and daughter. The children were sitting on the floor, digging through bags of groceries. Hungry, they were hastily stuffing cookies, muffins, and candy into their mouths. Give it all back to me, the mother ordered them. Don't eat anything. I will make you a proper meal. The woman took the bags of groceries John had brought and went into the kitchen. Elizabeth looked around, as if she hadn't seen her favorite, cozy kitchen in a very long time. The sink was filled with dirty dishes. There were some pots of mustard leftovers on the stove, and the floor was so dirty it was scary to tread on. Elizabeth set about cleaning up. A couple hours later, the kitchen was gleaming with cleanliness. The women sorted the groceries bags. There was a lot of stuff in there. John bought bread, chilled chicken, cheese, sausages, milk, and more. The children looked out of the room, wondering at the change in their mother's behavior. Elizabeth put on her apron, pulled her long dark hair back, and began to prepare dinner. An hour later, the satisfied children were sitting at the table, covered with a clean tablecloth, eating fried potatoes and chicken that their mother had carefully baked on an oven. It had been a long time since they had such a delicious lunch. The next day, John came to Elizabeth's house to visit, happy for the woman who had put the house in order, the children well fed, washed and happy. The hostess offered her neighbor tea. They sat at the table in the kitchen. You see, you just have to make a little effort, and life does not seem so meaningless, said John, sipping tea from a snow-white cup. I'm very grateful to you, John, Elizabeth answered him. Yesterday I realized that I must live for my children. I have to think about how to earn money. I've already thought about it. The man smiled at her. My friend owns a gas station near our village. He can hire you and teach you everything. It pays well, but it's a 24-hour job. What do you think about it? I would love to, exclaimed the woman, but then she thought about it. John, if I'm going to be gone 24 hours a day, who's going to take care of my kids? I think Oliva can handle it. She managed somehow while you... The neighbor didn't want to remind Elizabeth of her alcoholic binge, so he stopped talking and then added, I can look after them sometimes when you're not home. I'm very grateful to you, John. It's scary to imagine what would have happened to me and my children if it had been for you, Elizabeth said quietly, tears welling up in her eyes. Years passed. Elizabeth quickly learned everything that was required. On her free days, she gardened and did housework, helped Olivia and her sons with their homework, and took care of her children. When Olivia turned 14, Elizabeth decided to throw a party. The woman set a table in the yard, baked a delicious pie, and invited John to visit. The men often come to Elizabeth's house. They became real friends, and he also visited the widow's house when the woman went to work, checked if the children were fed, and in the evening put to bed the youngest, who did not listen to Olivia at all. Elizabeth trusted John in everything and was grateful for his help. Olivia is becoming a real beauty, John remarked as the children ate and left the table. Soon she'll be overrun with ghosts. The men stared at the girl's firm breasts, which the thin t-shirt couldn't conceal, and looked at the appetizing ass and slim waist. Olivia was changing from a child into a beautiful young girl with a slender figure. She bent over to pick up her youngest brother's scattered toys, and John left us staring. "Tell me, John, why don't you get married?" Elizabeth asked the question for a reason. She had been eyeing the man for a long time. He could be a good husband and a good father. "I was married once, but she was a witch and left me for a richer and more successful man," John answered her. "So you will have found another woman. You told me myself that I need to get on with my life." "Your words, John? That's true. But after that betrayal, I didn't want to get married again." John shook his head. "I didn't want to get attached to a woman who will cheat and betray me again." The man pushed away his plate and cup and stood up from the table. "I have to go, Elizabeth," the man said. "I'm going to work tomorrow. Will you look after my children?" "Sure, don't worry." One day, Olivia came home from school upset and frightened. "Mom, you called to the school principal," said the girl. "Why? Have you done something wrong?" Elizabeth was worried. Olivia studied well, was calm, obedient. Her mother did not believe that she could do something, and even such a thing, to be called to the principal. But Olivia answered nothing, silently went to her room and lay in her bed. She was very scared. Elizabeth walked down to the school corridor, worried about her daughter. The principal was sitting at the desk in his office. When the woman entered, over her seat, "I respect you as a mother of many children, and understand that it's not easy for you to raise your children alone. But what happened to your Olivia is beyond normal," the principal said in a stern voice. "What about my daughter?" Elizabeth gave her a surprised look. "I think she's fine." "Is that what you call fine?" The headmistress stood up indignantly and put her hands on her desk. "Your daughter is pregnant at the age of 14. She is still a child herself." "What are you talking about?" Elizabeth couldn't believe her ears. "It can't be." "Unfortunately, it can. The school had a medical examination today, and the fact that your daughter is pregnant has come to light." She sat down again. "Well, I have to report this blatant case to the proper authorities." "Wait, if what you say is true, I will go home immediately and talk to my daughter. But I still can't even imagine Olivia being pregnant. Yeah, she's put on a little weight, but she doesn't even have a boyfriend." At home, Elizabeth had a difficult conversation with her daughter. Olivia remained silent, not saying a word. She had already forgotten about the incident. But today, during the doctor's examination, She remembered again how John had done to her. The girl was scared. The principal's gonna call the police and the child welfare authorities. The one who did this to you will be arrested, and you will be taken away from me for bad parenting. Is that what you want? So then Olivia confessed everything. That night, John as usual came to put the girl's little brother to bed. He read a story to the children, and then came into Olivia's room. John told me not to tell anyone about this, that you will kick me out of this house, cried the girl. Dumbfounded by her story, Elizabeth hurried to John. He was doing something in the vegetable garden, deftly wielding a shovel. The woman flew up to him and attacked him with fists. How could you? You scoundrel! Scoundrel! I trusted you so much! She shouted. How could you do this to my daughter? You told me. The man sighed snidely, defending himself from Elizabeth's blows. Your daughter is good. Anyone will want to get under her blanket and fondle her. Believe me, she didn't mind. What are you talking about? I'm calling the police immediately. You can't prove anything. It was a long time ago, and the girl's words will be taken as slander. John grinned. I will, because Olivia is pregnant, and you got her pregnant. Elizabeth shuddered. The man froze. Is it true? Yes. What am I supposed to do? I have 4 children myself, and Olivia is going to have more. How am I going to feed them all? Elizabeth sat down on the bench against the wall of the house. John put the shovel aside and walked over to her and sat down beside her. He didn't want to go to jail. You know what we shall do? I will marry Olivia and help you. I won't go to jail, and it will be easier on you, John suggested to Elizabeth. She looked at him with tear-wet eyes. He didn't seem to feel any guilt at all for raping her little girl. He spoke of it so easily and simply, as if he were offering her tea or lunch. John looked at the woman expectantly, but all he could read in her gaze was disgust and a desire of revenge. Suddenly, he grabbed Olivia's mother by the throat and began choking her. You have no choice but to agree, he hissed, squeezing the woman's throat. Otherwise, I will kill you, and then I will slaughter your puppies. I will have some more fun with Olivia first. Elizabeth was scared to death. She nodded her head. The threat was serious. Almost fainting, she nodded, agreeing to John's proposal. That's good, girl. The man loosened his fingers, releasing Elizabeth. I won't report you to the police. Only I have to talk to the school principal. She can and will report you. Go and tell her immediately that I have wanted to marry Olivia for a long time, and I will do it soon, John ordered. The woman rushed to the school, but first she ran home, ordered the children to be quiet, not to open the door, and lock the door. What if John came in? Should open the door for him too? Olivia asked her mother. He should definitely not open and stay out of the windows. In the headmaster's office, the school board was gathered. Elizabeth stood with her head down in front of the principal, the head teacher, and the class teacher. She told everything. I know what we will do. You don't have to be afraid of anything. 15 minutes later, several police cars pulled up to John's house. At the sound of the sirens, the villagers came running. Elizabeth stood among them and watched her neighbor being led out of the house in handcuffs. We have been looking for this rapist for a long time now. He has victimized more than 20 girls, including minors," said the policeman, approaching Olivia's mother. "Thank you for reporting what he did to your daughter." John paused for a second as he walked past Elizabeth and said angrily, "I will come out and get revenge on you. I will come out and get revenge." "You won't." The policeman showed him in the back. "Now you will be behind bars for a long time." And then, 4 months later, Olivia gave birth to a baby girl.